So what DeMello is telling us is that, as I said, he's when he would be asked the question, what do I need to do to fix myself? What do I need to do to change myself? His answer is, you don't need to do anything.
Mm.
And it would surprise people. We're really taught to be change agents. We're really taught to be dissatisfied with ourselves and to judge ourselves. And understanding doesn't come out of any of that. And it's
Right.
understanding that actually produces change within us, but you can't understand what you don't see. And so awareness is a way of bringing it into focus. And so the very first part of the awareness practice that DeMello teaches is get in touch with those negative feelings. Get in touch with those forces that you feel like are overwhelming you. Get in touch with that stress, that anxiety, that depression, and just let it be there. Don't try to change anything. He says, the more you try to change it, the worse it gets. The people will try to change a negative thought into a positive one. And, the research shows it doesn't really work.
Right.
And what you
Just
do, go
a quick
ahead.
question on that, Don. Like, how do you, I'm sure people resist that right away. Like they don't want to go into that, that fear, they don't want to feel that anxiety. So, how do you help people with those initial stages, like just to let them know that it's going to be okay and that
Well,
they're
the
safe?
first thing I invite people to do is to understand they're not going to like it. I mean, who likes to feel fear? Who likes to
Yeah,
feel depression?
right.
Um, and so the second thing I tell them is, as you step into it, be conscious of being afraid of being afraid. Just start right there. I'm afraid of being afraid. And
Mm-hmm.
then what you begin to notice is this resistance comes up with you, and it's always been there, and it's blocking you. And yet it's strong enough that you would just as soon, pull the covers over your head and go back to sleep, right? And so hang in there. But my next piece of advice is just hang in there and be with the resistance. Don't try to change that. Be with whatever is happening. And so what DeMello would tell you too is that as you do that, as you move into it, first you put your little toe in the water, then your leg, then you pull it back out, you put it back in again, and eventually you step into it. And DeMello invites you, as you step into it, is to pull back. In Zen Buddhism, they call it stepping back. Step back from it and look at it almost as if you're looking at this fear was happening in some other person, or this depression's happening in some other person, or this anger, whatever the negative emotion that you're going through. Get some distance from it, get some objectivity from it, and then be aware of how there's another part of it that's going to come through, which is you judging yourself, you condemning yourself for being this way, and that's one of the real mind benders of what society has done. First of all, they've programmed this into a false belief that we cannot be happy unless we fulfill all of the demands that they say that we're supposed to fulfill to be a success. And look at all the ways in which that turns into demands we place on other people, and then how frustrated we get with other people when they don't live up to our expectations, the whole thing that we go through. And then at the end of it, when it's turned us into, a bundle of stress, we turn around and we blame ourselves for it. And we're not to blame. I mean, who would put themselves into a bundle of nerves that's full of stress and can hardly get through the day? Nobody would do that. It's their programming, the way we've been programming, that's done that. And so if you understand that, it becomes easier to move through this process. And so when you notice yourself judging yourself, condemning yourself for how can I be this way? What's wrong with me? Observe that as well. Take that in, and keep moving through the process. And then you'll reach a point where you're this energy, this negative energy that's the result of this programming, and it's an important step to say, this is happening in me, not because of me, but it's happening in me. It's not happening to me. The whole part about wake up, all is well, is that reality is fine. You know, when you really think about reality, reality is neutral. So that, you know, like, for example, you plan for a picnic like I did yesterday, and we had this torrent of rain that came
Oh
through
no.
the area, this
Yeah.
river of rain. And we had this picnic we we're all going to go on. And as I looked out the window, I realized we're not going to have any picnic. And the first thought I had was that, you know, what I used to do is I blame the rain. You know, the rain is ruining my picnic, and
Mhm.
the rain is why I'm upset right now. Well, no, the rain is just the rain. Um, the upset is coming from you, and you need to eventually come to understand where it's coming from. But right now, just own that it's coming from me. There's nothing wrong with me. It's the way I've been programmed. And
Mhm.
then as you get to that point, if you just breathe with it, or as my grandson, who's a surfer, does, if you just ride the wave, eventually all of this activity, this emotional upset will pass. And we all know that everything passes. And once it passes, you're free. And in that moment of freedom, if you really let go to it, what you will experience, what you will see with your own eyes, is that this happiness, this feeling of well-being, this feeling of peace, this feeling of I'm really okay, life is really okay. You're located in the present moment. Now you're home. You got home.
Yeah.
And so what DeMello says, you do this practice for as little as 2 weeks. You know, you do it seriously all day long. You're as you go about doing whatever you do, you're in touch with how you're being on the inside. And so
Mhm.
when some kind of upset comes up, you're in touch with it. And so that's his first thing. Get in touch with those feelings, those
Mhm.
upsetting feelings, and then write them out in this way, in this process. And it's all outlined in this book back there. As
Okay.
you write it out, it'll pass. And eventually you'll come to understand that you are okay, that you really are, and you've always been okay. It's
Mhm.
just you've been run by this programming that's been indoctrinated and wired into your brain. And one of the things we've learned in neuroscience is a thing called neuroplasticity, which means that a change of mindset that changes your experience literally changes the way your brain is wired. And so those synapses that have been firing rapid order and taking you over before you even knew what happened begin to shrink. They don't
Mhm.
disappear altogether, but they begin to shrink. And now they get you to choice. You know, they slow down enough where you can go, you know, like you've gone down that dark alley of negativity and fear and stress 10,000 times, and now you're there looking down the alley, and you're looking down, you say, you know, I don't think I'm going down there today, or at least this moment. Now you're
Mhm.
free. And the more you do that, the more you have that experience of how this turmoil inside of you passes, and that there's nothing in you that needs to change. There's just these things you need to get out of the way that's blocking your basic nature, your basic fundamental uh, happiness in which you were created. That
Mhm.
creativity that makes life fun comes on board. The feeling of love for other people and for life itself. And then that sense of separateness begins to crack and crumble. And you can look out a window and feel at one with what the sun is doing, encouraging the grass to grow. Or, I had an experience of being in Grand Central Station where I had missed a train that was leading to a very important appointment. And I was all upset. I used the awareness process to work my way through it. And as it passed, the upset passed, I looked around and I just was aware of how beautiful this architecture was, and how amazing the human activity in it was, and how beautiful all the people were, and what this enormous diversity that we're all living in, and the energy of it all. It was mind blowing to me. And I
Mhm.
went from this snarled up face condemning myself for being late to a meeting to this wide open human being. And I'll take a change like that any day.